Every shopping account I audit falls into two camps: over segmented from day one, or you're stuck on a single campaign basically forever. Here's what most people get wrong. They assume more campaigns equals better performance, and it's actually quite the opposite. When you split your shopping campaigns too early, you're starving smart bidding of the data it needs to optimize. This also applies to Performance Max. Today I'm talking about standard shopping, but the same thing happens if you're running PMax campaigns. Today I'll walk you through my exact baseline campaign structure, the one campaign setup I use to launch every single new shopping account or even restart an existing account. By the end of this video, you'll know the one metric that tells you when you're actually ready to segment, and most advertisers miss this completely. Back in the early days of Google Ads, segmentation was everything. If you wanted to set a specific bid for a search term in shopping, you had to isolate it in its own campaign. The same thing for devices, for locations, for audiences, for products, for categories, you name it. But in the age of smart bidding, the same thing that was so successful back when I used to do Google Ads a ton will hurt performance rather than help it. Over-segmenting your campaigns or overcomplicating them means the smart bidding has less data to work with, and that is one of the main reasons why accounts that have more campaigns tend to perform worse than accounts with fewer campaigns. But what is over-segmentation? When are you over-segmenting? When are you under-segmenting? When do you have the wrong segmentation completely? These are the questions you need the answers to, and today's framework will help you clear it. So let's talk about why you should not over-segment from the beginning. The number one rule of shopping ads is that you should be profitable with a single campaign. If you're not profitable with one campaign, just a single campaign, standard shopping or PMax feed only, then you need to go back to baseline. Product, price, website. No amount of campaign segmentation can solve the problem if you can't make a single campaign work. This is not to say that creating a more complex campaign structure can't help your performance. I'm a huge advocate. It's one of the core things that we do nonstop in Savvy is more complex shopping structures. But standard shopping combined with smart bidding, it just works really, really, really well. So if you're not performing well with this baseline campaign structure, then you risk tinkering with campaign structure, spreading your data too thin, wondering what should I try next, when you should really be thinking about how can I optimize my website? Do I even have the right product market fit, or what prices should I be testing? If we pull this back to Google Ads, then yes, of course, like I said before, there are campaign segmentations that will improve your results, but chances are you don't know what the right segmentation is to begin with. If you start with segmenting your products from the beginning, you end up risking campaign structures that don't really make a difference, overly complicated account, you don't know what works, you have no knowledge of how good a campaign structure really is because you can't compare it to what's a baseline. And basically this is how you end up creating campaign structures that are based on categories or brands or other stupid segmentations like that. So now that we've established that you just need one baseline campaign, let's talk about which type to choose. So when you're setting up your baseline campaign, you have two options. Here's when to choose: either standard shopping or PMax feed only. You should use standard shopping when you want full visibility into search terms and product performance. You need precise control of product grouping, negative keywords. You're looking a little bit more in ad groups, and you can see, okay, if you have ad groups for pants or jeans, then you also put those products in there. So you can match and see, okay, what products, what jeans are actually matching the jean search terms. It can also be you're actively optimizing. So you're adjusting max bid limits, you're analyzing impression share, and of course, you want to avoid the budget bleed with display video and Gmail that I can't stand. And then the big thing is, if you're planning to use priorities, to layer your campaign segmentation when you move to a segmented campaign. Because there's no need to start with use PMax if you're going to go to standard shopping in a few months or in a year. But on the other hand, you could use PMax feed only when you need maximized conversion value bidding. It's really useful for new accounts with limited data. You skip the whole maximized clicks thing, which I hate. The second thing is, if you want automatic dynamic product ad retargeting included, it's already in PMax. You don't have to do anything. And if you're not touching any of the other things that I mentioned with standard shopping, then then you might as well do PMax. So the reality here is that if you're just launching a feed-only PMax and leaving it alone, then honestly, from my point of view, there's no difference between standard shopping, and PMax in performance. The only differentiator is how hands-on you plan to be. My overall recommendation is always to start with standard shopping if you're going to optimize actively, and if you have any doubts, start with standard shopping. It gives you cleaner data, fewer variables, and I just think it's a better way to start and restart campaigns because I know I'm only buying shopping ad traffic and I'm not messing it up. If you're planning never to use campaign priorities, or you're just more comfortable with PMax, then you can stick with PMax as a single campaign. The next thing I want to talk about is before you start segmenting your campaigns in shopping or PMax, then you need to optimize your baseline, because this is where people also get wrong. You start segmenting and doing this and doing that when your titles suck. So here's just like a quick checklist of what to go through from an optimization standpoint before you start segmenting out your campaigns and building a complex campaign structure for shopping. So number one thing is feed optimization. Make sure your titles are keyword rich. Make sure you have good images. Make sure you fill in all the attributes. I have another video that talks about feed hygiene. That's what I talk about with filling in all the attributes, especially in the AI age. You need to do that. The second thing is product analysis. Are your top products getting the clicks? If not, try to excluding products that aren't your top products but are getting clicks. Let me show you what I mean. So this is a product from one of our clients. When we started ads this year, it was the top product. We got 90% of the clicks in on this. But how do you think conversions went? This is funny. This is let's make cookies. This is a funny thing to see, and Google had even zoomed in on the sweater. Awesome. But we were getting a ton of clicks and no conversions because this product had a high CTR. Then it kept focusing on it again and again and again. And no matter what I did, I couldn't get rid of it. And because we didn't have conversions yet, because it was the beginning of the season, which mimics you starting a brand new campaign or brand new account, then this is a problem. So actually I had to remove it. I excluded it from the feed completely to go through it. The next thing you want to look at is search term analysis. Look at, are they relevant? Do they align with your overall keyword research? If not, then look at, do you have the right keywords in your product titles? And if you don't, do that. If you do have the right keywords in your product titles, then there are two things you can do. You can use negative keywords to make sure you remove the keywords that aren't relevant. And the second thing is lower your ROAS target. Sometimes you don't get into the right auctions because Google just haven't allowed you to it yet. The next thing to test is overall ROAS targets, overall bidding. But I highly recommend this approach when you're starting out. Test different ROAS targets every 2 weeks. Often you need to have a little bit of a lower ROAS target than you're comfortable with to get shopping ads going. Every 2 weeks, lower your ROAS target by 50 percentage points until you start getting traction. Once you've had traction for 2 to 4 weeks, which means you get a lot of clicks, you're spending your budget, then you can start saying, okay, now we're increasing the ROAS targets back up, and then you can follow what happens. The next thing is max bid limits. If you're using max bid limits, try to remove them and try to test different ones. Sometimes you simply just are capping yourself from an impression share and not getting into the really good auctions because you have too low max bid limits. But this is it. Run this baseline structure for 4 to 6 weeks minimum. Collect at least 100 conversions. Find out, okay, how can I optimize? How can I do better titles? Get a good performance going with a single campaign instead of over segmenting from the get-go. In the next video, I'll show you exactly how to analyze the baseline data to determine if and how and when you should start segmenting out your campaigns. The typical questions that I get when I look at these things is, do I include my brand in this single campaign or separate it from day one? Personally, I would exclude it. Your brand split or splitting your brand and non-brand, that's not campaign segmentation, that's just common sense. The next one is, how many products should I include? You should basically just include all of them. If you have some hero products, you can start with those, but most of the time I see people over excluding instead of doing the right thing. And then the same thing applies here of 10,000 SKUs. The last question I wanted to tackle here is, how do I know if I should revert my complex campaign structure? How do I know if I should follow the advice today with trying to restart the account? And here is a really good example. I also have this in my video on how to validate shopping campaign structure setup. But here's a good example of when to stop the structure. So in this case, we have a bestseller and main and saboteur or unprofitable setup. And the conversion rates for our bestsellers is lower than the ones in our main product. It's clearly not working. And this is something I see again and again and again. People will set up complex campaign structures and then they will all have the same conversion rate. They'll all have the same CPC, they'll all have the same target, and it just doesn't work. There's no need to have it like this. In this next part, I will talk about when to think about segmentation. Like I said before, first thing is make sure you split out brand versus non-brand. This should be your first split, and it should always be in a separate campaign, and it's not really a segmentation in my book. The second thing is make sure you have enough conversions. Every campaign you create should be able to get 100 conversions. There's a couple of exceptions here. If you're isolating low performing products in another campaign to limit the spend on them, or you're isolating seasonal products before peak season starts, lower the ROAS target to get them started, then you obviously don't need 100 conversions per campaign to do it. But if you have enough conversions, then you need 2 reasons to segment. There needs to be significant performance differences between your product segments. Or the other thing is, you need to set or want to set a different ROAS target or budget. I'll have another video ready with the campaign segmentation, so I'll not go more into detail, but don't touch any segmentation until you get to this part and until you watch my video. So remember to subscribe so you see it when it comes out. So here's what I want you to do after watching this video. If you're starting fresh, create just one standard shopping campaign, set a break-even ROAS, even a little bit lower, and give it a budget you can afford to lose. If you already have a complex structure, I want you to seriously consider reverting to baseline. Do the check. Are there different conversion rates on the different campaigns? Do you have different ROAS targets? Do the campaigns do what you're looking for? Most of you will most likely have an overcomplicated setup that you don't need and that are underperforming without you even knowing it. So look at your campaign structure right now. If you have more than 3 to 4 shopping campaigns and any of them are getting fewer than 100 conversions per month, you're most likely hurting your own performance. Simply just create a new baseline, run it side by side for a week. Use the waterfall technique where you increase the ROAS target on your existing campaigns every week, every 2 weeks, and then pause your former setup. I've seen this work dozens of times in audits. Accounts with 8 to 10 campaigns consolidated down to just 1, and performance improves within weeks or months. A complex structure doesn't help you necessarily. It's spreading your data too thin and preventing smart betting from learning properly. Start simple, get profitable, then consider segmenting, which is exactly what I'll cover in the next video. So remember to subscribe, and thank you for watching today. I'll see you next time.
If you're into practical PPC insights that you can actually help you, then subscribe. I share tips, breakdowns, and call out what's working and what's not. No fluff, just the stuff that you can use every single week.